This is Pick One, Pack One with everything you need to start your draft off right. My name is Paul. I'm here as always with my friend Gavin McKay. How's it going, Gavin?
Hey, how you doing, Paul? It's great. It's great to be here. We're setting up for an exciting time here in the Magic community. We're going to talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender, right?
Yeah, and it's been a minute since we've been here with everybody. We've finally planeswalked away from the exotic plane of New York City,
I
and
mean, those hot
we're
dogs are
here in
great, but I'm a
yeah,
little
and
bit
it's
full from all the hot
yeah,
dogs.
seriously, all the glizzies. But yeah, we've got Avatar. Finally, I've been so excited for this set. I have high hopes. And so, kind of a question that I'm going to put to you, Gavin, that we're going to ponder kind of throughout the course of this episode, and we'll get your initial impression after we've gone through it, is how do you feel that this stacks up as a limited format after we've just come off RCQing Spider-Man and seeing the same 25 to 55 cards over and over again that everyone was playing if they had a winning deck?
Yeah, so I've been really excited to move on from Spider-Man, going to those RCQs with you and seeing what options were available. It was very disappointing, the types of decks that you were able to build. The format was very limiting just because there were a limited number of cards. I mean, generally speaking, the mechanics themselves were okay. I did like some of the characters, some of the card designs were cool. It's just, it didn't feel like a complete and robust package to me. When you are building a limited environment and you're building a set for people to draft, specifically to draft and not in a pick two format, you have to put a lot of time into the design aspects of every color pair in order for it to be engaging and replayable and fun. So I think
And only
some of that
having
fun was
five
missing
color
from
pairs.
Spider-Man.
And only
Yeah, it
having
only
five
did have
color
five
pairs,
color pairs. So
Gavin.
what's up with
Like
that?
that is kind of the problem for me. And my experience and the experience of a lot of people seem to bear out that green white was just the best archetype far and away. So if your pool or your draft was not
Selesnya
in green
rules.
white, you were on kind of like a lower tier than the S tier deck of the format.
Yeah.
And so that was a bummer. I'm really
Yeah.
excited for
And
Avatar that we
that feels
have.
bad. That just feels bad.
It does feel bad. Yeah, and I think that was the thing that soured me on the format the quickest was how shallow of a format it was, and that's a testament to not having enough cards to make up a format. I'm sorry that we beat this horse the last time you all saw us, and I'm still down on it months later, but we're going to move on. We are flying off to better pastures, yip yip, our way into something new. Before we do
Hey,
that,
Paul,
though,
did you happen to shave your head for this glorious occasion?
not yet, not yet. But if I have a big blue arrow painted on my head on pre-release day, don't be surprised.
Hmm,
Maybe. No
I
promises.
won't be. I just I feel like Avatar is a breath of fresh air, and the story itself. I mean, I've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, and while I'm not the biggest fan, I've I've definitely seen the show. I know the characters and everything. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Magic to really step in to this world and knock this out of the park. I think this is going
Yeah,
to be fantastic.
yeah. And before we get to all the excitement, we have another piece of exciting news that dropped on us while we were away. In October, Wizards announced the 2027 Magic Limited Championship. So, all the grinders out there, we're going to talk about this more as we get into next year, but they announced a limited Pro Tour essentially. There's going to be qualifying events throughout 2026. The qualifying events are going to be side events for all of the SCG cons where the Spotlight series are happening and all the Magic Fests. So it's going to be the only places you can qualify. You're not qualifying at your LGS for this, at least not that they've revealed yet. Maybe something will change as we get into 2026, but that doesn't seem like the case. I wouldn't bank on that. I would plan on, if you want to qualify for this event for 2027, mark your calendars, book that vacation time, plan on flying out somewhere, whether it's Washington, D.C., Baltimore, the sunny Hartford, Connecticut in the
Heck yeah.
fall. Yeah. Yeah, we got
Is
one
it?
local,
I think it's coming in
everybody.
November, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, this
November.
time next year,
Yeah, just in time for us to boldly go where no one has gone before.
and
Maybe
that's
play some
true in
Star
more
Trek
ways than
Limited.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
You're finally coming full circle with Star Trek coming to Magic because that's the game that you were inclined to play and ended up getting hooked on Magic instead, right?
yeah, totally, totally. That's a deep cut there that people might not know, that I actually got into Magic because there was a Star Trek trading card game that came out in 94, and I tried to find it before it released, and the guy at the store was like, "Well, you should just check out this Magic game." And I did,
Yeah,
and
it's
I've been
pretty good,
hooked
right?
ever since, 30 something years later.
Heard it's pretty
So
good.
here we
Just to
are.
get my thoughts on this limited championship, I mean, it's always good to see when, your pride and joy, your favorite format, gets the love and support that it deserves, Certainly
Absolutely.
I'm, no stranger to calling for more action on Magic limited formats. I mean, we talk about it all the time, what makes a good format, what makes a bad format. Limited is pretty much the only type of Magic that I play. So while Commander is obviously the most popular way to play Magic, Standard and Modern and all the other formats have had support for this kind of, I don't want to say metagame, but people are talking more about limited Magic than they ever have before. People are excited about limited Magic more than they ever have before. I think a lot of that has to do with Magic themselves taking it seriously and actually, very much appreciating what limited format does to the game and brings people in to play. I'm sure they saw that with Final Fantasy. I'm sure they see that with Magic the Gathering Arena, with the powered cube on Magic the Gathering Arena. Cube and limited environments where you're drafting cards and putting a deck together on the fly is such a good mental puzzle and really takes a lot of skill. I mean, I'm exhausted when I come home on a Friday Night Magic from doing, even the most, straightforward of draft formats like Bloomborough, where you pick an animal and you go with it. Um, like it's still very draining because not only do you have to build your deck and you have to build everything around your deck, making all these picks, decisions, finding the lane, etc. You also have to play the games and you have to be good at knowing the mechanics and the rules and everything else. It really tests every facet of your skill as a Magic player. So
Absolutely.
that's what I really like about it. I'm glad they're supporting it. I'm glad they're giving it the attention it finally deserves because you know they've always had prize structures for constructed events, standard and modern and
Those two
pioneer,
those two formats in particular, Pioneer a little bit, whether or not Pioneer still exists as a format remains to be seen, but
honestly though, I just like the fact that they're spreading the love out and, recognizing that some of their best players, people who are in the Magic Hall of Fame, like Reed Duke and Luis Scott Vargas, I mean, all they want to do when they play Magic is play Cube. They want to play a
yeah,
limited
they
format
they
where they
wanna
get
they
to
wanna
play
play
with the
limited.
right. They want to play limited. I mean, this is not a small prize pool, Paul. This is $500,000 in this prize pool, so
Yeah.
it's not chump change.
No. So it's very exciting. We'll definitely be talking more about this as we get into next year, and maybe plans for us solidify to travel somewhere or something like that. We'll
Absolutely.
keep everybody posted. But in the meantime,
Amazing.
absolutely.
In the
In the
meantime.
meantime, though, we have Avatar to talk about. So, with every primer that we do, we usually start out by thinking about how do you approach analyzing a new format. And kind of the way that I've always liked to break down a new format is start by looking at the mechanics, finding comparisons between what's in the new set mechanics wise and individual cards wise, and other sets that we've seen before. So Avatar, you
Hmm.
have to, as a universes beyond set, make the immediate comparisons to like Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man, for example. But you can
Final
also
Fantasy.
mention Final Fantasy for sure. So many sets this year; it's hard to remember some of the ones that came out this year. And then um Aether Drift earlier this year, because there's exhaust in this, and there's lots of abilities. So that's where we start when we frame our discussion: is what are the mechanics? What other sets can we reference when we're looking at this? The big picture of Avatar is just the sheer number of mechanics, and we're going to go over each of these mechanics with y'all, especially the new ones, because reading the card does not necessarily explain the card with these mechanics. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, pun maybe
Hint, hint.
slightly intended. Will teach you some lessons if you're not familiar with those. So let's start out with water bending,
Hmm.
Gavin. Show
Absolutely.
us show us a water bending card, and we'll talk about
So
this.
we have this waterbending card here, and I'll let you take us through it. These named characters, they all. So just to give a brief overview of Avatar, if folks haven't seen it or don't know much about it, the basic premise is all of these. This country has all of these different tribes who can bend different elements to their will. So water bending, fire bending, air bending, and earth bending. So they bend the elements to their will. And so these mechanics are reflexive of that. And we'll explain what each one does in detail. But the premise, if somebody hasn't seen Avatar, is that the Fire Nation is kind of attacking the other nations and trying to wipe them all out. And so there's a battle that is happening between all of these tribes and survival. So that's the general background on Avatar, just from a contextual perspective. If it helps you learn the mechanic a little bit better, it can kind of put things into perspective for you if you know a little bit of the background.
And I highly recommend people watch the show. It's great.
So good.
My wife and I have watched it several times. I actually binge watched the entire series when I sleeved my Invasion block cube,
Yeah,
which was 4,000 cards double sleeved, including the
it's a lot
lands.
of sleeving.
So that was a lot of sleeving. We watched the entire series front to back that weekend.
Amazing.
That was my pandemic project. But anyways, on to
Let's talk about
Katara
waterbending.
Bending Prodigy. Katara Bending Prodigy is an example of water bending. She is a 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human warrior ally that says at the beginning of your end step, if Katara is tapped, put a +1/+1 counter on her. And she has Waterbend 6, draw a card. While paying a Waterbend cost, you may tap your artifacts and creatures to help. Each one pays for one generic. So we could
Yeah,
kind of
so
compare
this
this to
is
improvise.
improvise or convoke. Yep.
Yeah, both are abilities we've seen before.
So improvise, correct me if I'm wrong, but it allows you to cast spells using artifacts to pay for generic mana costs. Is that
Yes,
right?
tapping
Okay,
artifacts to pay
so
for generics, the same way
that's
Convoke
when you're
tapped
casting a
creatures.
spell, though. So, and so is convoke. Convoke, you can use your creatures to
Yes,
pay for the casting cost. This is an activated ability, though. So that
yes,
means that you can activate it at any time. It doesn't require you to tap the creature to do it, but the water bending itself is tapping the creature, but it
yes,
also can tap artifacts as well.
yes. So very cool that this is an activated ability that doesn't say activate only anytime you could cast a sorcery or anything like that. So that is sweet. Definitely going to be.
I think it's really impactful because then you can hold your blockers up for defense, and then when you've decided what your opponent is doing, much like water, you can bend your plan to match the actual need of the battlefield. If you need Katara as a blocker, you don't want to tap her until you have the opportune moment to draw a card on your opponent's end step after they're done.
Yeah. So, waterbending, very sweet mechanic. We're gonna see this on a number of cards throughout the set. There are 25 cards with waterbend.
How many
So we'll
cards are in the set,
definitely
Paul? Just to give people a contextual kind of
so
baseline.
there are 286 draft cards in the set. There are 61 borderless source material cards, which we'll talk about those. And then of the 286 draft cards, there are also a number of alt art treatments. So you're going to see lots of alt art treatments in your packs that you're going to be opening,
Hmm.
which does open the door to seeing duplicates of cards in this, yeah, multiple copies of cards in your sealed pool, being able to draft multiple copies of the same rares because multiple copies of them get opened and are floating around the table in various styles and printings. So
Right.
something to keep in
Yeah.
mind in the booster fun era, that is something that is out there.
Cool.
But yeah,
So the next mechanic that we want to talk about, do you want to take this one as well? This one's earthbending.
yeah. Earthbending. So, if you notice a trend here, anybody who's seen the show might be familiar with the order that these elements and bending abilities are discussed. This is Haru Hidden Talent. This is a 1 and a green for a legendary creature human peasant ally. He is a 1/1, and
Hmm.
he says whenever another ally you control enters Earthbend 1, target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature with haste that's still a land. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. When it dies or is exiled, return it to the battlefield tapped. It's quite a mouthful of an ability on a card there. A lot of reminder text telling you what the ability does. But essentially, you're turning your land into creatures and fighting with it, which is pretty sweet,
Hmm.
like what earthbending feels like, where you're chucking rocks through the air at each other. So it feels
Yeah.
really true to the show.
I mean, if you're so the lands and the mana that you're using are coming from the source, you're literally picking up your stuff beneath your feet, forests or mountains or whatever else, and kind of using them as cannon fodder. Well, cannon fodder in this case because it's just a 1/1, but there are other earthbend. So earthbend 1 is 1/1 count 1/1 counter. Earthbend 2 would be 2/1 counters. Earthbend
Yep.
3 and so on
Yeah,
and so forth.
you're gonna see
Um,
Earthbend and a
yeah,
number, and that'll tell you
I
how
have a
many counters you're
question,
putting on the land. Yeah.
and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but it just popped into my head, so I'm going to ask it.
Okay.
If you were to target the same land with the earthbending ability, would it get another counter or would it just stay a 1/1?
Yes. As far as I understand, every instance of Earthbend, you can Earthbend the same land over and over again and keep putting counters on it. Because there's
Right.
nothing
Okay.
that's restricting what you can target. So
Mhm.
if it said target land that's not a creature,
Right.
that would prevent you from doing it. But since it just says target land you control, that's any
Yeah.
land you control. I'm gonna be putting this on a secret tunnel all day
Right.
long.
Sure.
All day
Because
long.
that land can't be blocked,
Yeah.
which is a crazy line of text I'd never thought I'd see on a
On a
land.
land, yeah, we'll pull that up and look at that later, just so people can see that because that's a fun one. It's also important to note with Haru that Haru is an ally, and his ability cares about allies. So you're getting a 2-for-1 on mechanics on this one card right here. We're talking about earthbending, but we're also going to talk about allies really quick. Allies are an ability that harkens back to Zendikar OG and World Wake a long time ago, and they're all
Mhm.
creatures that care about having other creatures with the ally creature type.
Right.
So Haru being an
So
example,
they're
you
all
play
working together.
allies. They're all working together. They're all on Team Avatar here. And
Mhm.
we have 77 cards in the set that are our allies or care about allies. So that's quite a
Got it.
number of them. So you're definitely
Yeah.
going to
I would
see
say
this.
that's like a third of the set, right?
Yeah, this feel allies feels like a main staple mechanic of the set, it really feels like something you're going to be looking to have ally synergies in your limited decks. It seems like something that's going to be floating around that everybody's going to have a little bit of, unless they're in Black Red Fire Nation, which
Fire Nations don't really
we'll
have
get
too
there
many
when we get
allies, I don't
there.
think.
Yeah.
All right, so the
So
next
that's
one that we
earthbending.
wanted to talk about is airbending. Nope, firebending. Don't want to go out of order here. So it's firebending, and there's a reason for that. So firebending is a very interesting mechanic. I'm going to pull up the firebending student here. So the firebending student is 1 in a red. It's a creature human monk with prowess, which is another keyword. It does appear quite a bit on other creatures in this set and has appeared in the past. But it basically means whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn, and then it has Firebending X, where X is this creature's power. So firebending is whenever this creature attacks, add X red mana. This mana lasts until the end of combat, and it's a 1/2. So firebending is really interesting because you have a lot of timing restrictions about when you can use this red mana. Firebending is all red mana. I don't think there's another color that is represented by firebending. It's red. So red is a very aggressive color. You get this mana during your combat step, and then you have to use it during your combat step, or else it disappears afterwards. So you can see a case where your pump spells and your other combat tricks that you're going to be using midway through combat, instance specifically, are going to be greatly improved because you get this kind of free mana during your combat step to use for these spells. Now, the timing restrictions and making sure that you have something to do with this mana and that it doesn't go to waste is going to be really important, I think, for this color. But I think firebending is a really cool mechanic, and it's going to be pretty powerful in, I think, some of the eternal formats like standard and maybe some other formats as well, where maybe in your limited format, if you get 5 or 6 different pump spells, you're happy and you can play this. But in standard, where you can jam your deck full of powerful pump spells, this is going to be a powerhouse for sure. You can pump up this, Monstrous Rage is banned, but there are other pump spells that can pump this up to a 4 or 5 power creature, and then all of a sudden you're having 5 or 6 mana on your attack step. That'll give you a lot to play with as a red
Well,
mage.
don't forget we mentioned a activated ability on Katara for waterbending. Maybe you're
That's right.
not super deep in tapping your artifacts and creatures, but mid combat your blue red deck is making a bunch of red mana in combat, and you're dumping it
Yeah.
into that activated ability and drawing some cards.
I
There's
can
lots
definitely
of
see
flexibility in this.
I
I
can
like it a
definitely see a
lot.
use case where you're actually casting your pump spells ahead of combat, with this card in particular to get that additional mana. But typically it's not going to say Firebending X, it's going to say Firebending 3, Firebending 2, Firebending 1, where it's giving you a small effect, but mana goes a long way. It really does. And as long as you can utilize it correctly, either by using it to pump up your creatures or draw cards or getting some other sort of advantage, this is going to be really great for that color pairing.
Yeah, and there's 28 cards with firebending in the set, so it's one of the deeper bending mechanics. So we're definitely going to
Right.
see it in limited.
They're very, very well represented. And the last one that we have is airbending. And airbending is the least populous of all of these bending mechanics. The reason for that has some canon baked into it. I really like the flavor of the set, and they really did the set justice when it comes to making sure the story was very well represented. As it turns out, and this is pretty sad, the airbenders were kind of wiped out, and so there aren't as many of them anymore. And so airbending is more of a rare mechanic. How many cards does it appear on, Paul?
It appears on 11 cards in the
11
set.
cards. So, a little bit rarer to find the airbending cards. or ones that have airbending on it. Still very important that we talk about airbending because it's also a new mechanic here.
And a sweet
The
one.
card we Yeah, it is a pretty sweet one. The card we selected here for airbending is Aang, the Last Airbender. So it's a legendary creature, human avatar ally for 3 and 1 white mana, has flying, and when Aang enters, airbend up to one other target non-land permanent. So airbending is exile it. While it's exiled, its owner may cast it for 2 rather than its mana cost. So whenever you cast a lesson spell, Aang gains lifelink till end of turn, and it's 3/2. So the thing that we're actually really most interested in is, when you exile the card, whether it's your own card or your opponent's card, you basically rebuy it. You can cast it again for 2 rather than its mana cost. Timing restrictions still apply, so you can't
Yes.
recast it right away if it's a creature or an enchantment or something else. But you have to make sure that you can either get the buyback in yourself by paying 2 mana for another enters ability, basically buying back good effects, or you airbend something on your opponent's board and now they have to pay 2 mana to get it back on the board, and they get enters abilities or whatever. But you're actually kind of clearing the way for your attacks or
That's the key
getting something
there, you know?
problematic out of the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing
The other
is
thing that's
you're saving
interesting,
your stuff and
yeah.
nerfing theirs.
The one thing that I would just note is that it does say, well, this one says target non-land permanent. I don't know if all airbending is for non-land permanents. I believe it is, but
I believe it is.
this will not work. This will not work against your opponents who may have earthbend lands on their side of the field. So I don't think you'll be able to earthbend lands because it says non-land permanent. Just keep that in mind. If you're trying to flash, it's not going to cost 2 mana for your opponent to replay their land. That just doesn't make any sense, right? So,
No.
um, all right. So those are the 4 main bending mechanics. Now there are some other mechanics in here as well that we're kind of interested in, as well as some more interesting mechanics that we wanted to talk about.
So before we go away from Aang, actually, Aang has an
Mm-hmm.
ability that says whenever you cast a lesson spell, Aang gains lifelink until end of turn. There are 36 lessons. Lessons are instants and sorceries that have a subtype of lesson. We last
I'm
saw
going to pull one
these
up right here.
in
This is
Secrets of Bloodbending. Yeah.
bloodbending.
We
Yep.
last saw these, though, in Strixhaven, where they were connected to the learn mechanic, and you could pull lessons out of your sideboard with the learn mechanic. Don't get your hopes up. There are no learn cards in Avatar. I feel like that's why the lessons are so good, is there are no learn mechanics in Avatar. Maybe they're seeding for constructed next year when we see Return to Strixhaven happening. Secrets of Strixhaven
Possible.
is in the winter/spring. It's
Mm.
early in the year, so we'll know
I think
soon
it's
enough.
mid-year. It's after TMNT, I think.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. So
sooner
anyway, so
rather than
this
later.
lesson is crazy, right?
Yeah, Secrets of Bloodbending, sorcery lesson. Blue, blue, blue. It's 4. Yeah, yeah. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may water bend 10. You control target opponent during their next combat phase. If this spell's additional cost was paid, you control that player during their next turn instead. Exile Secret of Bloodbending.
So what
Spoiler
does that mean to
alert,
control your opponent?
you make all the decisions that they make. You see the reminder text is you see all the cards that player could see and make all decisions for them. So people probably have seen this before. They've seen Mind Slavers like the classic example. So we've seen this before. It's pretty neat. I don't know how good it's going to be in limited, but it seems like it might be sweet since you get to make all the decisions for them. You play this on them and then attack and make a bunch of terrible blocks and wreck
Yeah.
them pretty good, like, that seems like a good plan, you know? Or you
I
just
mean, the thing
don't
is, if
block
you're
at all
just
and
like
you kill
control,
them.
yeah, if you're controlling them even just during their combat phase for 4 mana, that seems really good. I mean, the cost restriction is pretty high. 4 blue pips is not nothing, but I could definitely see this card being absolutely busted, even if you're not taking their next turn. Even if you're only controlling them for their combat phase, because you can set up advantageous. At the bare minimum, it's going to buy you another turn, right? Because you could just choose not to attack. You know,
Well, yeah, it's during their next combat phase. I was reading that
that's
wrong.
right. Yeah.
So you
So
can't
so
just
at bare minimum,
cast it
it's
and make your creatures unblockable, unfortunately. But
right,
you could at
right.
least make
You
them attack weirdly
right
so you can eat their stuff
unfavorably.
unfavorably.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that this is gonna be that sweet if you can't, like, cast sleep on your opponent and pseudo tap all their stuff and alpha strike them, you know?
Well, I mean, with the amount of stuff with water bending and things that can tap down your opponent's stuff, I mean, there's some pretty creative things you can do. However, uh, I think this is going to be, I don't want to say a win more card, but it's just, we wanted to use a cool lesson to kind of showcase, the style of the card that we're talking about. Look for lessons to be pretty powerful. Look for them to be, you know, something that you are interested in playing in your main deck, before you would have them in your sideboard, and the learn mechanic would actually fetch them from your sideboard. So it was a little bit like a demonic tutor of sorts to try and get the right lesson for the situation that you were in. However, in this case, they're just good spells, and they are all, pretty good, I would say.
And they're in every rarity. They're doing a little bit of everything in every color, you know? You've got your accumulated wisdom, looking at 3 cards, getting you some card advantage. You got a counter spell in It'll Quench Ya in blue. 1 in a blue counter target spell unless the controller pays 2. We've seen iterations of that before many times. I think my favorite lesson by far is Soka's Haiku. It's 3 blue blue instant
Hmm,
lesson. Counter target spell, draw a card, then mill 3 cards, untap target land. So the rules text is actually a haiku. That's very sweet.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's 36 lessons in here, and they all do various things, but keep an eye on them. Again, there's nothing special specifically about the lessons other than they say that they're lessons. Accumulated knowledge cares about the number of lessons that are in your graveyard. There's some things that care about lessons as a card type, but by and large, they're just good cards, and so you should definitely take a look at them if they're in your pool.
We have a couple of small abilities to briefly gloss over that we've seen
Hmm.
before. So, real quick while you're
You
pulling
want to talk
up,
about exhaust?
yeah, so there's 8 cards that have exhaust in this set, which we first saw that ability in Aether Drift. It's an activated ability, you get to use it once. That's it. However,
That's
if
it.
you blink the object that has an exhaust ability,
Mm,
or return it to your hand somehow and play it later, say with airbending, it is a new object when it returns to the game, so you could then exhaust it again to play activate its ability again. So keep that in mind. I am pumped about all of these cards. One of them is a mythic that you're not going to see very often, but the other 7 are commons and uncommons. So I would expect to see all of them at some point in the life of this set and limited. And Gavin, we have several weeks with this set once it drops.
yeah,
So it's not
yeah,
like 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and the format's done. We've got like almost 2 months with this set before Lorwyn comes out in January,
January.
so I am
Yes,
very
this
excited.
set, this set, this set has is going to be the set that Um, Magic is and Hasbro is going to promote all the way through the end of the year, through the holiday season. I am very excited for the set. I think it's going to do very well, both from a um, financial standpoint. It's funny when a set kind of stinks, like Spider-Man was not really the best for the community. The set afterwards, there's high hopes for a return to form. And so some people who may have skipped the Spider-Man set may come back twice as hard with this next one, especially if they like the Universes Beyond or Avatar, or they just want to get back into drafting because they didn't do much of it with the pick 2 draft. There's a lot of reasons people would be coming back to Magic around this time. And also, if you're home
Gavin,
for
I
the
hear
holidays and
they
you're meeting up with
announced a
friends.
Magic Pro Tour, and I hear
Yeah, I also heard that.
everyone is going to be playing limited now because they want
Listen,
to qualify in
I
2027.
I will be right there with you, buddy. I'm very excited for that. Hopefully Avatar gets knocked out of the park. I mean, obviously all this attention put on the limited format. We want everything to be fun. So the set should be a blast. Do you want to talk about now the different signpost uncommons, just to give
I
people an
definitely want to
idea of what
mention the
they're
archetype.
working
I
with?
definitely want to talk about the archetypes and mention signposts. I want to quickly gloss over that there are two other sort of mechanics that are returning in
Okay. Yep.
this.
Hmm.
For fans
Hmm.
of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty and old school Kamigawa, there are 5 shrine enchantments in this set, legendary enchantments that care about other shrines being in play and doing things. Those are very
The
cool.
Southern Air Temple, the Spirit Oasis, the Northern Air Temple, the Crescent Island Temple, and the Kyoshi Island Plaza.
Yes. So these are
There are
all
5.
important locations in the Avatar storyline. Doing them as shrines in Magic with magic stuff is like Chef's Kiss. That's a fantastic execution of mechanics and flavor and setting. So very hats off to them for that. The other mechanic that I feel like this is just an evergreen mechanic we're going to see all the time now if the set warrants it, is clues are back. So there's 19 cards in the set that care about clues, which clue is an artifact. It's a token artifact that you can pay 2 and sacrifice it to draw cards. So it's the current
Yeah, it
flavor
looks like
of
there's about
getting
19
something.
cards that care about clues or have clues in their Oracle text there.
Yeah. So I like clues. Clues are sweet. I'm all about any ability that creates extra cardboard
Value?
objects,
Hmm.
and especially the value of drawing those extra cards is sweet. So yeah. So let's talk about color pairs. Let's talk about archetypes.
Real quick, before we talk about color pairs, just one very minor shout out. We mentioned that there are 4 colors of these bending abilities. So white is airbending, green is earthbending, red is firebending, and blue is waterbending. We didn't mention the 5th color in Magic, which is black. And black does not have a keyword ability. And that is, I mean, I don't want to say but it's not odd because black in Avatar does not really have an identity as far as the actual mechanics around. Like, there's like no necromancy or
Yeah, there's there's
stuff
4
like
there's
that
4
for
fire
Avatar.
there's nations that lived in harmony
Right.
until the Fire Nation attacked. But there's
Right.
not a
So
5th one.
having the
So the
fifth,
overlap of colors
right.
is into Magic is a little funky, but I feel like they did a good job
So
of setting aside.
right. So when it comes to black cards, just keep in mind that it's probably going to not stand on its own mechanically. I would say you do have to look at those other mechanics from the set and just be aware of all the other mechanics from the set because black is going to borrow those. So just be on the lookout for that.
I think as we dive into archetypes, you're going to be caring a lot more about cards that care about the archetype that you're drafting. And that's going to be true whatever the color they pair happens to be, as we're going to see black red is the firebending color. So that's going to be the firebending color pair. It's your Fire Nation aggro. I did
Yeah.
I did neglect to mention that there is another mechanic that's quietly hiding in the set also. Kicker is back,
Hmm.
which if
Did it
you're
ever leave?
playing, does it ever leave? Everything is kicker these days. It's kicker or it's horsemanship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Jet's
There's a
brainwashing.
few cards that have kicker on them.
Yeah,
Yep. Cool. So want to get to the color pairs? Let's talk about
yeah.
those.
Start us off. Talk about white blue flyers.
So we'll start as we always do with Azorius, which is blue white. The signpost uncommon for blue white is Air Nomad Legacy, and it's a 2 mana, a white and a blue enchantment for those colors that says when this enchantment enters, create a clue token. And we just talked about those. And then creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. The archetype, sort of overarching archetype of blue white in this set is, drumroll please, blue white flyers. So this is nothing new. I mean, there have been many sets that have blue white flyers as the archetype, as the archetype for blue white. There are obviously a lot of synergies with flyers. They're very evasive creatures, usually pretty good and limited because, again, if you're playing with this draft or sealed format, having access to one or two evasive threats can sometimes swing the games. So blue white flyers, Azorius flyers, you definitely want to make sure that you're getting those elusive threats on the board early and chipping away to get your opponent down.
And it feels like with an uncommon anthem effect in your archetype, you're going to be doing more than just chipping away. I
Yeah.
feel like you're going to be
Yeah.
taking big haymaker hits at people pretty quickly if you curve this into a 3-drop, into a
Yep.
4-drop, into a
Hold
turning
on.
sideways.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely one of those things where you could get a few flyers out there and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you're swinging for lethal.
Yeah, and glancing through, I didn't see a 1-drop flyer, but I could have missed that. So if there is a 1-drop flyer in the format, good old Healer's Hawk doing Healer's Hawk things would
Absolutely.
be pretty sweet.
All right, let's go on to the
So
next one. Paul, you want to take this one?
yeah, so blue black Foggy Swamp Spirit Keeper is 1 blue black for a 2/4 with lifelink, creature human druid ally. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. With this token, can't block or be blocked by non-spirit creatures. So that means it's only blocking other spirits. It means it's only
Nice.
being blocked by other spirits. So this is a really sweet card right here for 3 mana. And the archetype is draw your second card. What else do you want to do in blue black control besides draw more cards, So
True.
this is kind of everything that you're going to want to do, and it's a sweet signpost to be doing it with.
The fact that this has a pretty big, power and toughness is really nice. It's probably not
3
going to,
mana,
it doesn't die
2/4
to
with
lightning bolt.
lifelink. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which, side note, lightning bolt in the set, which we'll get to later,
right.
passes that test.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, when you're trying to draw cards, you want to make sure that you're having your defenses up as well. All
So
right, so
the
this
next archetype I have is Black Red Fire Nation aggro. What is
that's
Fire
right.
Nation aggro?
So for this signpost uncommon, the signpost for Fire Nation aggro is Cruel Administrator, which is a 5 mana, 5/4, 3 and a black and a red for creature human soldier with raid. It's a mechanic that cares about if you've attacked, so it's a very aggressive mechanic. So it says raid. This creature enters with a 1/1 counter on it if you attack this turn. And whenever this creature attacks, create a 2/2 red soldier creature token with Firebending 1. So this could be, if you're an aggressive deck, could come down as a 5 mana 6/5 that creates a 2/2 red soldier token that generates you mana every time you attack. That seems pretty good.
This is a sweet top end card. Yeah. If you're goal is to curve out and turn things sideways and play a bunch of tricks and activate abilities at instant speed in your combat step, this is a sweet top end to be at. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, um, again, because black doesn't have a keyword necessarily, the identity around black has to be more of aggression and chaos, and I'll just go ahead and say evil.
yeah,
I mean,
cruelty.
the Fire Nation is the bad guys in the show. They're definitely not playing around. They want to take over the world, and it's up to the
The flavor
Avatar.
text
And
says it all, Gavin. You're one mistake away from dying where you stand.
I wouldn't want to be on that guy's bad side. I'll tell you that much.
No.
Okay, so after red black, we have let's see here,
I have
red
red green
green.
earth rumble
Yep.
ramp,
Yes.
which
So
is probably this is probably the most unique archetype that we've seen so far, I think, anyways.
yeah. Well, so you want to read the card?
Yeah, so the signpost uncommon for this is called Bitterwork. It's an enchantment for one, a red and a green, and it says whenever you attack a player with one or more creatures with power 4 or greater, draw a card, and it has Exhaust 4, Earthbend 4. So you for 7 mana, you could play this and make a 4/4 that you could then
Wow.
attack with and draw cards with, which
I
is
mean, that seems like it's doing the thing that it's saying on the card, you know?
yeah, exactly.
It creates the case that is also what it's trying to do. The other thing about earth bending, is that your creature has haste, but it's still a land. So if you're tapping this for Earthbend 4 and you used your fourth mana to do that, it doesn't untap your land, but it does have haste.
Yes.
Just be aware of that. I think they put haste on the lands to make sure that, you weren't tracking summoning sickness on your lands. So that would be
Yeah,
really annoying.
yeah, that would
Did
be
this land
really
come in this
annoying.
turn or that?
I
So
animated
I
this
think they
thing
give
and
it
now
haste
I
for that
can't
reason.
tap it for mana.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
prevents those
exactly.
feel bads.
If it prevents those feel bads, you don't have to track which land you played at which point. In paper, that would be a nightmare to track. Just make sure that, if you're casting this for 4 mana and you only have 4 mana, that, the creature comes into play or would come into play on the
I feel
battlefield.
like that's also a nod to Arena and the auto tapper and the feel bad of I
Yes.
played a land and then Arena auto tap my lands and I
Yeah.
animated
Yeah.
my one that just came into play. Oops,
Yeah.
sorry. So very
Yeah.
sweet on that. I think this is going to
Okay.
be
So,
it's a little bit of something that we've seen before in that it cares about power 4 or greater, but it also
mhm,
feels like the Earthbend archetype. So if you want to turn your lands into creatures and throw them at your opponent, this feels like the archetype that you're going to be doing.
absolutely. All right. Next up, we have green white allies. So, this is Selesnya. So, Selesnya is green and white. And we have White Lotus Reinforcements. So, White Lotus Reinforcements is a 3 mana, 2/3 in Selesnya colors. So, one a white and a green mana with vigilance that says other allies you control get +1/+1. So, it's an anthem effect, 3 mana card. We already said that allies are a big creature subtype here. There's over 77, I think you said 77 different cards with the ally subtype or care about allies. So you're going to have a lot of allies that will just incidentally be pumped by this, even if you're not specifically building an ally deck. But it seems like Selesnya and Green White wants to build around these allies. Most of them are in these color pairs.
Yeah. The fixing does feel pretty good in this format. So I do feel in sealed like you could open a couple of these and decide you want to play multicolor allies because you have a bunch of sweet allies to play. So I could conceivably see playing 3 or maybe even 4 color allies, maybe 5 color allies if your pool supports it,
Mm.
and
One thing it
being
doesn't do
able
is
to get
pump
there.
itself, though. Just
It does not,
noting that.
but 2 of them, you know?
Yeah, that would be
One
pretty sweet
hand
if you had
washes
2 of
the
them.
other, as
They're
it
not
were.
legendary.
Yeah, so they
Perfect.
can be friends.
Absolutely. Well, they're allies.
Hey, yeah,
All right, next up we have uh Black White Sacrifice.
yeah.
Want to take this one,
So
Paul?
there is a sacrifice archetype in this format, Gavin. I know you're a fan of the red-black sacrifice, but maybe the white-black sacrifice will be the thing for
We'll
you
see.
this format. So this is Tolls of War. It's white-black for an enchantment with when this enchantment enters, create a clue token. And whenever you sacrifice a permanent during your turn, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn.
Interesting.
So it
Is
is
there a sacrifice sub theme? Like, I mean, I haven't seen too many cards that have, sacrifice, but it does make something that you sacrifice when it
it, ma-
enters the clue
it makes
token.
fodder
So,
that you can sacrifice, and it has a trigger that cares about you sacrificing things. So
hmm.
if that's the signpost
I don't know if you're going to
uncommon,
be
it's
stealing your opponent's stuff to sacrifice it, but I definitely think that you're going to be gaining passive value from this pretty much immediately.
yeah, it's gonna do what you want it to do. And then anything on top of that contributing to that archetype is gonna be solid. All you need is like uh, a blood artist type ability, and then you're really cooking.
Off to the races.
Yeah,
So next we have Is It, which is red and blue. For this color pair, we have Dragonfly Swarm, which is 1, a blue, and a red for creature, dragon, insect, flying and ward 1. This creature's power is equal to the number of non creature, non land cards in your graveyard. And when this creature dies, if there's a lesson card in your graveyard, draw a card. This is going to be your typical spell slinger deck where you're trying to get a huge amount of, instants and sorceries, lessons,
particularly
other
lessons. Yeah,
particular lessons. You're trying to build up a large number of them so that you can, be aggressive and kind of, you know, chip your opponent down with these aggressive spells that kill your opponent's creatures or draw you extra cards or give you some other advantage in combat.
yeah. This is also an archetype where your red based firebenders are gonna be sweet, making all your
Yeah,
instants and
absolutely.
sorceries cheaper, giving you the ability to cast more things in combat, not only to win combat, but to grow your signpost like this and just do other combat oriented, lesson oriented shenanigans. So pretty sweet.
Absolutely. Next, we have Golgari. You want to read this one?
Yeah. So this is black green is our one color pair was gonna get the +1/+1 counter archetype at some point. So it is black green this time around. And this all focuses on the Dai Li, who were some villainous characters from the Earth Kingdom in the show. And black green feels like a perfect color pairing for them. So this card is Dai Li Agents. It's 3 black green for a creature human soldier. It's a 3/4. And when this creature enters, Earthbend 1, then Earthbend 1. And then whenever this creature attacks, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them. So it's
So,
cool the way this is worded because it's
mhm,
not Earthbend 2, it's Earthbend 1, then Earthbend 1. So you can either stack tall on one thing and put 2 counters on it, or
mhm,
you can animate a thing, animate another thing.
right.
So making
And
this
then when it attacks, you have two other creatures, and you may have other creatures with, counters on them. We even saw earlier, something has a double strike counter, right? I've never seen that before. So it just cares about creatures with counters on them. Granted, that creature was in red, so not in this color pair
Yeah,
necessarily,
and
but
this only cares
it
about
counts all
1/1
the
counters.
counters.
This cares about
Yeah,
+1/+1 counters also.
with
So,
+1/+1 counters. Excuse me, I thought I just said counters.
no, yeah,
+1/+1
so
counters. Yeah,
this'll be sweet. This is gonna be fun. I do like doing +1/+1 counter shenanigans when it's open and easy to fall into the archetype. So, this'll be cool.
absolutely. So next we have the red white Boros. Typically, Boros is a pretty aggressive color, but this time it's paired with white, which, in the Avatar lore is, a lot of the good guys. So in this case, it says that this card is the Sun Warriors. It's two, a red and a white, and it's a creature human warrior ally. So I got a 3/5 stat line, and it has Firebending X, where X is the number of creatures you control. So whenever it attacks, you add X red mana. So if you've just got the Sun Warriors out, it just adds one, but you could have multiple creatures. If you're going wide, typically you're going to have more than one creature, but it also has an activated ability of 5, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So it can start filling the board itself
It is a
over
one-man
time, but
army.
it's, yeah, literally a
Yeah.
one-man army, and it makes
It's
one
gonna
once.
it's gonna be slow, but this is a one-man army. So,
Definitely.
I
So, and
like
the
any
3/5
card
stat
that
line is nothing to sniff at.
no. I like any card that is gonna enable itself to get better, and so this being able to be both the enabler and the payoff is pretty sweet. So,
Absolutely. So that is Boros. Boros is going wide and being aggressive, but not necessarily evil. Not necessarily. I'm sure there's maybe a few bad guys in there, but we'll see.
yeah. And
And then
last
last
but
but not
not least,
least,
blue-green is doing ramp and lessons. So this is
mhm,
gonna be casting a lot of spells, but also ramping, and our signpost here is Hermetic Herbalist. Creature human druid ally. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. So this is your 5 color allies potentially also helping you out. Maybe you're going to be doing a base of white, green, blue, which is known as Bant for the old heads out there.
mhm.
And then you're going to be using this to cast your off color stuff. So tap, add one
Yeah,
mana of
so
any
you
color, or tap, add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast lesson spells.
yeah, so if you're ramping, you get to ramp additionally for lessons. And again, this is one of those cards that cares about the fact that it is a lesson or has the lesson card type. So this is going to be a lot of value. And if you're ramping, you're trying to get bigger stuff out faster than your opponent. And those lessons will maybe help you get there faster.
And I feel like this is also, if I'm in this early enough, I'm going to be slamming all of the off color removal that shows up,
Mm. Hmm.
because being able to cast it sooner, cast it when I need it, it's going to go a long way.
Awesome. Well, those are the color pairs. We don't know for certain what's going to be the best color pair, or we
What
have
jumps
our
out to you,
favorites.
Gavin?
I mean, to me, I think I'm just a sucker for the Foggy Swamp Spirit Keeper. I just think the stat line is very good, and you know you're naturally going to try and draw more cards than your opponent. Naturally, that just is going to happen. So I feel like it could be a nice passive effect. That's my favorite of these uncommon signpost uncommons, I should say. Which one's your favorite?
So, archetype wise, generally, I would be gravitating towards the blue black as far as an archetype that I like,
Hmm.
or basically any of the blue archetypes is where I would be gravitating mostly. But I do really like the White Lotus reinforcements as a card.
Mm.
And I feel like
Can't go wrong with an anthem.
seeing can't go wrong with an anthem. That's also why I really like the Azorius Enchantment 2, a 2-drop anthem in my Flyers deck. So I feel like those are going to be sweet. I think the
I mean,
Hermetic Herbalist is going to end up being the best one.
if you look at it, you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4 of these signposts are even allies themselves. So
Yeah.
just on its own, you would be pumping 4 other creatures that are on here, and it shares a color with 2 of them.
Yeah. And that's why
So
I'm thinking the Herbalist is
pretty
going to
interesting
secretly
stuff
be the
here.
best one.
I'm very excited to see how these archetypes play out. Which ones will be the best? It's probably going to come down to a lot of That's why you think the herbalist is going to be the best
That's
one
why I
for
think the
sure,
herbalist is
because you're
gonna
just gonna,
be the best one because it's gonna enable all your ally things. It's gonna enable all your lesson things.
yeah.
I
Do you think it's going to be hard on the mana restriction being a green and a blue?
I don't think so if you build your deck around it, you know? There've been plenty of formats where
Yeah,
playing 5 colors was a thing to do, you know? We realized pretty quickly in Tarkir Dragonstorm that just taking dragon globes and playing 5-color dragons was, like, the secret sauce to crushing that format. Everybody thought
absolutely,
going in that we were gonna play our
absolutely.
3-color deck and we were gonna do 3-color clan things, and really it was play 2-color aggro
Hmm.
or play 5-color good stuff, and there wasn't a lotta awesome sauce to be found in between. I'm also a sucker for 5-color soup
Well, hopefully it
piles.
doesn't pan out like that.
No, no,
Yeah,
I don't think it will, but I am a sucker for 5-color soup piles, Gavin. So I am gonna
yeah,
over bias in favor of this card just for that reason. And I could be wrong, but
absolutely. Can't go
that's
wrong
my
with the mana
initial
dork either.
impression looking at it. Yeah, can't go wrong with a mana door.
Yeah. Um,
So
my
now that we've
my dark horse would probably be my is it spellslinger archetype that has seen a lot of love recently. Final Fantasy, was you could actually build a spellslinger deck, but I haven't seen it dominate an archetype yet. And I feel like if there's any archetype that could be a spellslinger, aggressive spellslinger type, something that has mana added during your combat step, is possibly the secret sauce that could push that archetype over the top. But we'll see.
and having an X3 with ward is one way to help push you over that too.
Absolutely, no, couldn't agree more. Last but not least, we did want to talk about this bonus sheet here. There are, you said 67 cards on this, or
I
68?
think it's 60
No,
something.
61. 61
Yeah,
cards.
61 bonus sheet cards for
61.
us to talk about here. And these are all stills from the show, and I have feelings. Gavin, I have feelings. I think some of these cards
Good
are really
feelings?
cool. I think they should have put a little more effort into the images on these cards. They
Hmm.
made no attempt to clean them up as far as I can see. They look very hazy. Just like,
We'll have
okay,
to see what they
capture
look
that
like
still
in
on
person, but
YouTube and ship it. Like, Cruel
this
Tutor
one
is the one that
seems
everyone on the internet is
especially egregious.
laughing at, especially the particular choice of just a zoom in on Ozai's face. I don't know. I think the
Yeah.
choice of cards that are here are neat. There are definitely some, like Searing Blood as an example, is a solid limited removal spell. There's a lot of stuff that you're
There's
gonna
good old
want.
fashioned lightning
Good
bolt
old
here.
fashioned lightning bolt. Good choice
Heck yeah.
of Azula. Nobody could lightning bolt better.
Yep.
I
True.
think there's gonna be some solid things here you're gonna be excited to open and play in your sealed pool and in your draft decks.
I
And then
mean,
there's
maybe
your
not against Kona, but
yeah, yeah. But
Kona's hard to cast though.
when you do, you win.
But when you do, you basically win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
uh,
art aside,
I
there's
think
some
I think
interesting choices here.
I would say art. Yeah, right. So from a design and art perspective, it's certainly a choice. I think that, these cards are so far and few between, you may not run into them super often, but you should take a look at them if they're in your pool because there are some very powerful cards in here. Some very good cards, everything from like Agent of Treachery to Clone. There's some Force of Negation is in here as well.
Yeah, so there's some money hits
Things
in
that
here. There's
you
some
shouldn't
solid
really
limited
play around
cards.
necessarily. Like, I don't know if you should play around these cards if you're playing against somebody. You're not gonna, unless you see it in game one and you need to write it down on your notepad. Uh,
If somebody Black Sun Zeniths you say you got me, and you shuffle up and
yeah,
play the next
and
game.
good job. Or
Yeah,
insurrection. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's one of those things where you can't really put too much thought into, um, you know, these cards being in the set because they're so rare. But you may run into them occasionally. Just be aware that they're on here. I don't think they'll change the draft format too much. There may be one or two cards. If you see a lightning bolt in the pack, is probably the best card in the pack, most likely. Depends on where your deck is, you know, it depends on where you're going with your deck and whether or not you can play it. That's just one thing we wanted to shout out, and hopefully, you know, it doesn't warp the format or anything. You know, it should be fine. You know, one or two cards here and there.
Yeah. So, as we head out of our discussion, Gavin, with
Mm,
every format that we look at, we like to ask some questions as we
hmm
step back out of this. And so the first question is, will this be a set defined by being on the play? What do you
You know,
think?
I don't think it will be. I think, you know, from what I'm seeing, I feel like this set may be less. Well, I don't want to say it's going to be less aggressive. I don't know if it's going to be as grindy as, say, like Tarkus or Dragonstorm, but I do think that there are some powerful cards and some powerful effects that may snowball. Like the firebending can snowball pretty quickly if you get, you know, a few favorable trades. But that's always been the case for red. So, you know, being red and being on the play, I don't know if it changes too much with this firebending, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say that it's not going to matter as much as people think it does at first. I think it's going to be really archetype dependent. If you're playing the Fire
Mm.
Nation, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. You're just going to do the thing. You're going
You
to
gotta keep your
attack,
head
you
on a
know?
swivel. Yep, absolutely.
But with other archetypes,
I
it'll
like that
remain to be
question though.
seen. So, from what you've seen so far, how good would you say the removal is? I'd say the removal's solid. Like, I haven't seen anything that's like,
I
"Oh,
haven't seen
there's not
anything
enough
super
of it."
busted yet. Yeah. I think that, you know, as a sealed and draft player, taking removal is always good. The creatures are just so impactful these days. You know, they usually have an enters ability, some of them have a leaves ability. They're they're doing the damage as they're entering or when they're entering. So, not to say that removal is not good anymore. It certainly is. You need to remove threats and, you know, the game is won over the board, but you should really be prioritizing cards that do multiple things. So, two for ones on a card are always good. So, a card that you can cast and takes away one of your opponent's resources is really good. Anything that you can do to slow down or tempo your opponent is always pretty good. So, I'm going to say I'm leaning more towards removal is really good when it's attached to another thing that you're also doing.
Yeah.
Straight
I
one
I
for
would
one removal is so blasé.
Yeah, it's definitely 2015 and not 2025, the straight up removal. But I would say that archetype dependent, I feel like this is a format you're gonna either keep your removal really close to the chest, or you're the Fire Nation and you're looking to just clear out blockers and get them dead, and you're casting spells left and right in
Yeah.
combat, you know? So you're gonna, depending on your archetype, you're really gonna hold that key removal spell until the very end, last possible second you need it, kill the biggest, scariest threat that comes out, or you're just shucking them onto the board and turning your guy sideways and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We'll have to see. I'm of the mindset that more removal is usually better, but I've since changed my thinking a little bit in the past year or so with the sets that have come out. You know, one for one removal, expensive removal, sorcery speed removal. Those have all gotten lower on my draft list, just as sets have gotten better and better with ETB effects and the quality of creature being able to do it all. Just,
Just think
you
about
know,
how
it
bad
feels
Shock
bad when
was
you
in
can't.
Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
think about how bad
It really
Shock
didn't
was in
kill a lot of
Spider-Man.
stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't really kill too much, and that stinks.
Yeah,
Used to be a great card.
X3 was the sweet spot in Spider-Man. Like, you had to be able to deal with 3 toughness things, so Shock was really a subpar card. You kinda felt bad when your pool was 3 shocks in your sealed pool as your removal,
Mhm,
as opposed to any of the other removal options that were kinda in that format.
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't
How
agree
good is
more.
the fixing?
You know, that is a great question. I think
I am
there's
pretty
quite
sure
a
that we
bit.
have I'm pretty sure we have a common, 2-color land for each archetype, each color pairing, so we have 10
Yes.
common duels in the set.
Yes.
So I'm inclined to say the fixing's great. I'm ready to play multicolor soup piles every sealed pool, every draft as I do.
They're all at common, so yes, you're going to be able to do that, and they also have draw abilities tacked onto them, so they're all going to be very playable. And there's even some interesting non-basic lands like Secret Tunnel that can't be blocked. There's Rumble Arena that has Vigilance, so there's some cool lands in the set. Um, will they be first pickable cards? I doubt it, but it's always good to know that you have some utility there.
Yeah, definitely. So, based on what we've seen and what we've talked about, what is your favorite common that's jumped out to you?
Well, I really like that Young Peasy, as they're called. No, the Young Firebender seems like a really sweet card. One that you could, again, like I said, if you're going to be casting your pump spells before combat and sort of putting your cards on the table and saying, hey, opponent, I'm doing this now, deal with it. You're being very proactive and you're being very aggressive. And that's the way I like to play. I like to try and get
Okay.
get to my opponent in a uncomfortable position where they're losing resources because they feel like they have to block what I'm doing rather than the other way around where I'm reacting to what they're putting on the board.
Okay. That's a rare though. I was asked what your favorite common was in the set.
Common.
Yeah.
I mean, can I say Avatar Aang? I mean, he's the one that the whole show is focused on, right? Yeah. Let me just take a quick peek here and see if there's anything that jumps out right away.
Tell
Avatar
you
Aang has got to be my basic
we
answer.
didn't discuss during the archetypes, not during the archetypes, the mechanics portion, but there is a full cycle of land cyclers in the set. So they all are creatures or spells that have a basic land cycling ability. So Giant Koi, for example, is a 6 mana 5/7. It's 4 blue. And it says island cycling 2, discard this card, search your library for an island card. I'm always a big fan of those. So that's I wouldn't
Absolutely.
say that's my favorite common, but that's definitely one that's on my radar because I do like that. There is okay, here is my favorite common. My favorite common is Azula Always Lies. It's one in a black,
Okay.
instant lesson, choose one or
Yep.
both. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So we've seen versions of this
Nice.
in
That's
limited
pretty good.
formats going back a bunch of
It's a
years.
+1/+1 counter instead of just, yeah,
Plus one, plus one until
+1/+1
end of turn. So
effects.
it's a little more cooked than we usually see this ability, which is nice for the same 2
Mm,
mana. And
absolutely.
shrink a thing, grow a thing, make combat messy for your opponent. I'm all about it.
Me too. I think if I had to pick one, I would choose Porcupine, which is a
Porcupine.
three mana red creature, Boar Porcupine. It's 2 in a red. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. We've seen this before, like Spellgorger Weird. I just really like this type of creature. I think, especially in a set that has firebending, you're going to be casting a lot of non-creature spells. So this thing can get pretty big pretty fast, and it's an aggressive creature, which I really like. Do I wish it was 2 mana? That would be ideal. But can't go wrong with a 3 mana 2/2 that grows. Maybe not the turn you play it, but the turn after for sure.
Doing exactly what your deck wants to do. I do like that
Yeah,
there is a lot of stuff like that. So this takes us back
great
to the first question that we open the episode with, and we'll close, Gavin, with that question for you, which is how do you feel about Avatar now that we've looked at this? How do you think this stacks up to Spider-Man? And I would even extend that to how do you think this, having played 0 games of the set and just looked at the cards, how do you think this compares to other
cards. Yeah.
sets that we've seen this year?
I think it's going to be great. I think that the designers and the team that's making this set has a lot of experience. So we're definitely going to see a much more rounded set, something that has a lot more replayability and maybe not as many broken cards isn't the right word. It's more just cards that more general cards. And we're going to see stuff that has very unique interactions and stuff that maybe we haven't seen before in a game of Magic. I think that Avatar as a property, intellectual property, is probably one of the best iterations of what Magic can be in this kind of external world outside of, again, when we're looking at universes beyond Final Fantasy, Lord of the Rings. These properties are influenced by magic in general and use it as some of their core principles. Same with Avatar: The Last Bender. I mean, it's magical to see earth bending, fire bending, water bending, air bending. I can't wait to see it and do it in paper
Yeah.
and
I
on
f I
arena.
feel like mechanically they knocked it out of the park. Like the flavor the combination of the flavor and the mechanics feels really sweet. I'm very excited about it. On the surface, all of the archetypes, all 10 archetypes feel good. You know, sometimes there's formats where you look at all the archetypes and you're like, well, Foundations, this one archetype just feels like it's totally unplayable. Neon Dynasty, this one archetype feels like it's totally unplayable, while these other archetypes all feel good. You know, the one that always jumps out to me is Blue Green from Lord of the Rings. Blue Green Scry just
Mm,
didn't feel like it stacked up compared to the other archetypes. Whereas,
yeah,
at least looking at the set right now, my opinion might be different a month from now. We'll maybe circle back on that. I feel like everything seems playable. I'm pumped to draft whatever shows up. I'm pumped to play it pre-release. Whatever shows up. By the way, play 2 pre-releases, get a swag bag of some kind as a promo.
yeah.
So folks that are
That seems
planning
pretty
on
sweet to
getting it
me.
1 pre-release, why not make it 2, you know? Get the free
Why not?
swag.
Why not spend more money and enjoy this set? I mean, you know, when we're looking at the top sets, I mean, Final Fantasy, I think everybody agrees that it's a top set, maybe one of the best sets of all time. I know you have a differing opinion on that, and that's okay. It wasn't your cup of tea, perhaps because there wasn't anything quote unquote new with it, in terms of mechanics. However, everything is going to be stacked up against Final Fantasy. Like that's the bar to clear. So if it can come even close to it, if it's even, three quarters or five-fifths, five-sixths of what Final Fantasy achieved in terms of universes beyond and storytelling, we're gonna have a good time
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. You will definitely see me at lots of pre-release things.
with a
So
big arrow right on your forehead.
maybe with a big arrow on my head, maybe not. We'll see how motivated
I'm
I
gonna
am.
take lots of pictures and certainly wear a lot of my avatar swag when I come to play for sure.
Full disclosure, I was Tenzin for Halloween a few years ago, so I do have a whole cosplay in
Mm,
the closet.
heck yeah.
Whether
Well,
I'm
we'll have to break it
motivated
out.
to be cold for the day is another thing. We'll see what the weather is like.
It is winter, getting to be winter in New England. So
Yep.
bald heads, make sure you cover that up when you're
Yeah.
going outside. All right. Well, that's all for us today. Thank you so much for listening. Paul, where can they find us?
We can be found at Pick One Pack One Pod on all the things. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Instagram. We don't post a lot, but when we post, it's usually something cool about Limited that you're going to want to check out. So definitely check us out there. Join the conversation, especially on Blue Sky. Let us know what you're excited about for Avatar, how you think all the archetypes stack up against each other, your favorite card. If you're enjoying these primer episodes that we do, this primer content and giving you your kind of compass to diving into a new set, help us out with a like and a subscribe. Keep the
Couldn't have
wagon
said it better
wheels rolling
myself.
for us, you know? Let's make it happen.
Yip yip. Away we go. So for that, we'll move to the end step, pass the turn, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye guys.
Bye bye.